Then I'll call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is to hear a word of welcome from Tim Van Fleet, the branch manager at the Odenton Library. Tim?
Welcome to the Odenton Library, everybody. My name is Tim Van Fleet. I've been the manager here for a year now, but I've been with AACPL since 2005. Just to tell you a little bit about our library, the staff here have been working hard to innovate and adapt to our customers' changing needs. Some of the unique things that we're doing here are we have a memory lab where we've been training people to preserve some of their analog media like pictures and VHS cassettes into a digital format. We've got a creation station where people have been learning to use robots and sewing and coding and just using that space for general collaboration outside of organized library events. And we also have a computer lab where we teach classes to customers in Microsoft Office and Google products, which has been very popular. We're also a LEED certified green building owing to our proximity to the MARC train station, as well as the carpool parking spots that we have set aside and our green roofs, which filter out contaminants and also make the building more energy efficient. So welcome and enjoy your meeting.
Thank you. As we move to approve the agenda, I'd like to suggest that we save the last 20 minutes of the agenda. So say from 5:10 to 5:30 for the discussion of policies and policy changes that are on the agenda. But may I have a motion to approve the agenda with that in mind?
I so move.
Second.
Second?
Jerry seconded.
He seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? I take it, since I don't see everyone in the room, that this motion has carried. May I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21 meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the July board meeting.
Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. I'd now like to turn over the substantial portion of the meeting to Skip and his executive leadership team for a little education on what the library is all about and how the executive leadership team functions and its work with the board in particular. Skip?
Okay, well, thank you so much, Chris. Well, I'm really excited to be with this new board. We've got 7 new members, and I think it's about 6 or 7 who have only been with the board 2 or 3 years. So really, Jan Elaine, Simona, Sandra, Jerry, they're the old timers. They're the senior group here that you can look to for the wisdom of institutional knowledge. I'm also really thrilled that we have Jay Creech as our counsel. I worked with Jay, as you know, some years back when he was with the County Office of Law, and he's done some yeoman's effort to try to help us with some new policies that will be addressed at the end of today's meeting. Quickly, I just want to ask, Chris sent out an email, whatever it was, 2 or 3 days ago, and we know that one person did not receive it or couldn't find it in the junk email. So I re-forwarded that email. Did everybody else get both an email from Chris and from me? Did anybody not get it? If you can raise your hand. Okay, looks like, Chris, I think that the email communication seems to be working. So I just wanted to sort of take care of that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So what we're going to do as a staff leadership team is to talk to you about just the importance of this work that you have signed on for, the value of this library system. I know that you know it because you were selected based on your passion, your dedication, and everything else that you have. But just to kind of give you a little bit of the flavor at the beginning, and then we're going to have my executive leadership team will be going through slides very quickly. They've got about 60 slides, and I've said everybody gets 2 or 3 minutes. So they'll be moving fast, hitting high points, and I think they'll do what I want to do, which is to just tell you some of the inspirational things that inspire me and keep me loving this job that I have. So for one thing, I think you all realize that the scope of libraries has just expanded immensely over the years. We have, when I got here in 2010, I didn't even think about the idea of having social workers in the library, but that's a regular part of our business now. And we work very closely with the county social services department. And there are so many things that we do. And I just want to tell you a little bit of what I did today to give you a flavor for this. I went to an all-day conference. I left before it was over on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in the arts. It was up in Brooklyn Park at the Chesapeake Arts Center. It was just a great conference, but it ties in and wraps in really strongly with what we're trying to do and trying to really ingrain in our library system, which is to develop diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and really a sense of belonging for everybody who works in our library or volunteers, as you are, and also for our community, so they feel good about coming into the libraries. While I was up there, I learned that just this morning at our Brooklyn Park Library, we put in a display. Katie Zawadney is the manager up there. Several of you met her recently when we had a board meeting up there. But she and her staff put in a display, and this was a display of soil that was collected just about a mile north of that library from one of the people who, at the time it was Anne Arundel County, now it's in Baltimore. It was the last person lynched in Anne Arundel County. There were 5 people. So we have this soil display. Christine's staff member, Karen Gardner, created this wonderful banner, and the staff up there got this jar of soil there, and the person's name was King Johnson. So this is important for us because we're connecting with our community in a way really we haven't before. We started that kind of an effort at the Severna Park Library roughly a year ago. I forget exactly the date, but when the marker that was put up at the Arundel Center about the lynchings in Anne Arundel County, when it got knocked over by a city bus, the group called Connecting the Dots came to us and said, do you have a place we could display this? And so we ended up working for many months and ended up putting that lynching marker in, and we also have information about the lynchings inside the library and kind of posters as you walk in. But we put it there, had a big ceremony to put it there. One of the lynchings happened at the Magothy River Bridge. And so there are ways that we're trying to look back at kind of a restorative justice kind of thing as a library system. So it's just so much more than books. When you get up to Severna Park Library or Brooklyn Park, look at those displays. So I think I just wanted to mention a couple of things that to me are inspirational about the work that I get to do with an immensely talented staff. We have about 250 full-time and career staff. We have a total of 400 people. We have the 17 of you who are great to work with. And with that, I think I just want to go on to, I believe it is Coben who has the first slide. And I guess as the as each of the executive team members has your turn, why don't you come up here and sit up here next to me, and you can go on with your discussion.
Chip, I have a question.
Yes.
What was the lynching in northern Anne Arundel County?
It was right at Garrett Park. There was a Garrett Park in Baltimore City now. It used to be part of
Yeah,
it.
Brooklyn Park at one time was.
Are you sure?
Yeah, up to the,
Yeah, it was county all the way.
it was all the way up to the water.
Yeah, And it was on Christmas Day. He basically was in jail, escaped from, well, he was basically taken out of jail and murdered, and his body was left and found on Christmas morning, 1911.
Was it up around Hanover Bridge or?
No, it was right there at that park. I'll show you some. Yeah. We're gonna do Library 101, and Coben Roundtree has been our chief of HR for 2 years, 2.5 years. He's been awesome, yeah. So. Brett?
This is we can do a quick overview of human resources, exactly what we're responsible for. We won't get down to the weeds because we do quite a bit. It gets very detailed. If you go to the next slide, that's just a picture of our team. Myself, Coben Roundtree, I'm Chief of Human Resources. Top right is Bethany Lambert. She's our Learning and Development Manager. Down the bottom left in the pink, that's Cindy Thorne. She's our Human Resources Specialist too. She is incredible. My whole team is incredible. Probably one of the best HR teams I've ever worked with. And that's just not saying that lightly. That is the absolute truth. To the right in the middle is Pam Hadaway. She's our Human Resources Specialist 1. And down at the bottom is Mary Ann Scott. She's our PTH, or part-time Human Resources Assistant.
May I have your attention, please? If Alyssa Johnson is in the building, please come to the Adult Information Desk. Excuse me.
A major area.
Alyssa Johnson, please come to the Adult Information
I feel like I'm in a
Desk.
hospital. Our major areas of responsibility are staffing, pension administration, benefit administration, employee relations, learning and development, and of course, the general human resources administration. And to break that down a little bit, in terms of staffing, we have a total of 237 full-time staff, 36 part-time staff, and 106 part-time hourlies. And part-time hourlies also consist of 70 paid staff. And we've been fortunate enough to have 115 volunteers as well that helps us out in the branches. So in terms of kind of total staff, actual bodies, it's 449 individuals that are basically on payroll and actively working in our branches. So we are part of our pension administration. All of our employees either go into the Maryland State Teachers Pension Plan or the Anne Arundel County Plan. There are 219 people enrolled in the Maryland State Teachers Plan, and 42 enrolled into the county plan right now. And then we, of course, have a voluntary deferred compensation plan through T. Rowe Price. And there are 104 individuals enrolled with that. Now, last year we had 13 retirements. A lot of that was due to individuals who just, we've done 30 plus years with the library and did an incredible job. COVID played a little bit of a role in that. Some of them just thought that it was time once COVID hit because things were changing and a lot of things were uncertain, so they felt it was time.
Let me interrupt real quickly. I'm going to be keeping a stopwatch on all my team here. You all should know that you have this in board effect. So you can go back and see the details here. And each of you, you don't need to cover every single thing on there, but just get the highlights.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
And I was claiming my time. So we have full benefits through the county. And we piggyback on their county as well. Next slide. So in terms of employee relations, I really take the lead on that. A lot of counsel is given to our managers or supervisors, as well as to our employees as well. And we get involved in a grievance resolution and any type of investigation regarding anything. And we've only had one grievance, I believe, in the past 12 years. Learning and development, she takes care of so much in terms of providing all of our training. We've had 170 trainings last year. She facilitated 5 major conferences, so she coordinates all the travel and the travel budget and reimbursement, and as well as our education assistance program, but she does a lot. This is just Human Resources Administration. We kind of cover all the nitty-gritty that's involved in HR. And that can get quite detailed. Everything from legal administration, overseeing the personnel budget, developing policies, and also interpreting policies. And then finally, generally, when you're here for me, is providing a briefing on HR-related topics that are going on in the library system. I'll be submitting policy recommendations for get your approval. You'll hear from me when it's time for Skip's evaluation, so I'll give you all of your feedback and collect that and put that together. And instead of submitting that over to Chris, and then as well as if we were to hire an executive to the board approval. So generally, that's typically when you'll hear from me or that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Next up is Kathy Hollaback, so I'll restart the. Three, four. Go ahead.
God, all right.
Just start talking.
People tell me I talk fast, so it shouldn't be a problem. I will, but feel free to ask any questions if I don't cover. So, my responsibilities are public services and branch management. So Chief Operating Officer, which is all of the front of house, all the library services that have to do with the public. That's Sneaks, our mascot. Yes, that's the 11th. So this just gives you an overview of our 16 branches and our leadership structure in the branches, 3 regionals, 16 managers, the career staff, all the different positions. So they're all in my line and the hours that we are open Sundays during the school year and then Monday through Saturday during the year round. So branch services, I'm sure that you are at least somewhat familiar with them, but depending on what your interests are in the library, and you may not have been to all of them, but a lot of early literacy programming, education, entertainment, Wi-Fi. These are the things that people come in and use in the branches every day. Okay, all right. Some special services that you might not know about. Some branches have specialized, things that we do for our customers. So like Tim talked about the creation station here. We have the library bag mail service at Glen Burnie, the community pantry. I'm going to give you a little handout for that when I'm finished here. At Discoveries at the mall. And then at Annapolis, our interlibrary loan service and the makerspace collaboration study rooms. That's something a lot of customers want and most branches don't have yet because our buildings are older, but it's something that we're putting in the newer buildings. Social work at the library, as Skip mentioned. Thank you. The social worker is through a partnership with the Maryland Department of Social Services. Right now, it's only at 4 branches. We're looking at Annapolis next, but it all depends on what they can provide for us. We have asked for a social worker to be funded directly for us. Haven't gotten that, but this partnership works pretty well. Last month at Brooklyn Park, just looking at it this morning, 89 requests for help at Brooklyn Park. So that's a lot. And then kindergarten readiness with our van that you just saw. That's Brandy Deli, and that's actually Vernon Snowden. He's at our building care technician at Eastport. That's from our general staff meeting, just a cute picture of us. But Brandy is in charge of everything that has to do with circulation. So our student library cards, our educator cards. She keeps our day-to-day circulation system running and the unique library things that you probably heard about. That's Becky Potts. She's our programming and outreach manager. So she works at headquarters with her team and she just gives guidance to the branches. They also do some programming of their own, but a lot of it is just coordinating the programming that goes then on at the branches and developing relationships with all of our partners. So the schools, the community college, all the different county agencies, nonprofits, and businesses that we work with. A lot of that comes through. So if someone wants to do a program, they submit it to our website, it goes to P&O, we call Programming and Outreach, and then they say, oh, okay, well, that program will be great at Edgewater or whatever, and then they help facilitate that. They also organize our summer meeting club throughout the whole system, and lots of other events. This is our virtual services department. So that picture is Christine, me, and Stephanie Petrusa, who's our virtual services manager. And she is in charge of all of the website, the catalog, the social media, the staff intranet, the customer-facing technology, so Chromebooks. And actually, we just changed our title, Digital Experience Manager. Sorry, for the old one up there. And then the databases that you probably use. And then little things that you might not have thought of, our meeting room system, our incident report system, all of those little things that go to the day-to-day operation of our virtual services. And then programs, these are just some of my favorite programs that I've been to lately. We had a pirate story time, and then the one on the lower right is Discoveries. They had baby prom, and kids were all dressed up. It was really fun. Yeah, really fun. So I am on the Human Resources and Diversity Board Committee with COVID. And you'll get reports from me that just talk about the highlights of what's going on at the branch. I ask the managers to tell me, what do you think has made the most impact in your service area in this time period? And that's what I share with you all. That's awesome. And then this is just a handout that Kevin helped me about our pantry at Discovery. Pretty amazing numbers. Just started last year. Timely with the pandemic relief, very needed. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy,
So-
right at 5 minutes.
If Kathy's-
Okay.
So Demita, welcome, and she's gonna come on up to the table. Rudy will be next, and we'll have our executive team speak from the podium from here on out.
Great. So Kathy's team is front of house, then support services is the back of house. We work on the core principle of good design, that effective support by good design is 99% invisible. Not to worry, that's actually kind of the way we like to do things. We try to emulate Apple's mantra. It just works. There are 3 teams that are inside support services. Judy and her materials management and technical services team purchase, process, and evaluate all the items that are available for checkout from the library. Key to their success is that they have a very keen understanding of what our customers want and need. They closely monitor the publishing market as well as a multitude of cultural outlets to curate a collection that is responsive to our customers. Last year, they got over 180,000 items purchased for us, 105,000 print books, 14,000 visual AV items, and 67,000 digital items. Now, in order to make room for all the new stuff, materials management also works very closely with the branch staff to keep our DX session processes active and responsive. So new materials come in, the old materials go out. Very easy, but it's a lot of work. Technical services creates and maintains the catalog. Everything in the collection is there because people have to know what we have. They have to be able to find it, and we have to make it easy for them to get it out into their hands. They processed 23,000 new titles in the catalog and over 120,000 new items that were added to our physical collection. Scott and his team ensure that all of our IT assets are robust, reliable, and resilient. Their work is woven into almost everything that the library does on a day-to-day. We are a Windows/Azure/Office 365 shop. All of our enterprise solutions are services and software products. Nearly 4,000 customers per month use our 180 public computers. Wi-Fi in buildings and parking lots, they get used almost 150,000 times per month. They also maintain over 400 back office and service computers, all told, almost 500, close to 600 endpoints that they have to monitor. And staff, they use email stuff back and forth, over 80,000 emails per month, close to 3.5 terabytes of gigs of data sitting on our SharePoint services. So it gets pretty busy. Coming later this year, we're going to be adding a cybersecurity administrator, a wholly separate division. Right now, it's only one person, but we'll see where that goes. It will be tightly associated with IT, but a separate division. Led by Maribel, our facilities and capital projects department division. They respond to all the building needs in partnership with our friends over at County Facilities Maintenance Division. We are one library stored in 16 locations. So books have to move back and forth. Our 3 delivery drivers do that work, in addition to moving materials for our COVID response. And all our programming supplies, all that has to get moved. It's just physical work. They do it, they knock it out. Maribel manages our capital projects. That's building new buildings and renovating the old ones. All up, it's and by the way, Maribel is also the grant writer par excellence. Since 2018, she's brought in $4.5 million in grants for new buildings for this library. So she has paid for her kit. So all up, it's about a $95 million capital improvement plan, pretty big portfolio running from now to fiscal year 2028.
Rudy, I wonder if I see that you're talking about cybersecurity coming in 2023. I've been impressed with the intermediate work that's been done by your group. Could you talk just a bit about what you've done in terms of processes and technology to harden the network and protect our patron data?
Yeah, certainly. So because it's cybersecurity, obviously, and we are an open forum, this meeting is being broadcast. I won't go into a whole lot of details. They are worthy, though, of a closed session with the board, and I'll be available to make that session whatever you need. In the interim, though, our biggest steps have been to move to software as a service. So we have SaaS solutions for all of our enterprise products. That really goes a long way toward bulletproofing our security for the core operations of the library. We're also implementing a two-factor authentication for all the staff accounts. That's coming later this year. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
So all in all, support services is a team of 36, soon to be 37 dedicated professionals providing world-class support to the library's enabling technologies. And then you got this guy. That's me. That's actually me doing the sneaks when we open Discoveries. Funnest day of my life. I provide oversight for support services. What that means is I give my 3 division heads the time, tools, and training they need to do their job, be the best division directors that they can possibly be. I am your SME for 2 of these public-facing policies.
Which is me.
Subject matter expert. Yeah. And you gotta get used to all these acronyms that library uses. The materials selection policy. If you haven't read that already, I very much urge you to take a close look at that tonight, because that one document is foundational to the way the library interacts with our community. I'll let you read it because that once you take a look at it, you'll see what that is. I also do the computer and internet use policies, and these are the 3 staff-facing policies supporting. I'm a pilot for strategy development. I can't say the word, but there it is. And I also do all the statistics reports. So a quick word about numbers. This is our plans and reports page on our website. You'll see the annual reports page and strategy links right next to each other. And we do that on purpose by intention. Everything that's in the annual report reports out what we do in strategy. Also, we provide there the key statistics, the outcome survey. That's our customer looking survey for how we did last year. And we've also exposed our key performance data to the public so they can download it, slice and dice at their will. This is the activity report that we show you once a month. This probably is going to be one of the last times you'll see it in this format. We, by meaning I, are going to refactor this report to make it reflect more what the Library Journal reports on their Star Library report. That is another conversation worthy later on this year. We keep track of all these numbers obsessively here. I think what we want to look at is the children's fiction and the downloadables. We keep track of items that go out by item type and by the shape and format that it is. It used to be that children's fiction was a third of our circulation and then everything else. But now, children's fiction and our downloadables, each of them are a third of our circulation and then everything else. The blue shaded area is our total circulation. The orange line is what we check out in physical items. Blue line is our downloadables and ebooks. And you see those lines are converging quickly. I bring this up because Skip asked us to highlight what our pain points are. For us, right now, this is just kind of like a pebble in your shoe when you're taking a run, but it's getting there and it's going to be pretty painful. You may have heard that we've been in a contretemps, a divergence of opinions with book publishers. I'm not going to say who. They're taking us to the cleaners. They are ripping us off. We buy an ebook for 3 times the market value that the person buys it. It's not because we're not going to go back and buy it again. Like a physical book, we buy them over and over again. So it's not like they're losing money. All I want is for them to sell us the damn book at a fair price. End of story. It's that simple. We're going to see how badly the situation gets. We're keeping a very close eye on that. Something we don't need to do. That's all for me. Do you have any questions so far?
Thank you, Rudy. Rudy, you were 9 minutes, but you had to
I had a
interrupt
question.
for 1 minute in the middle. So, okay.
Okay,
You'll see what,
good, that's fine, that'll be great. So again, Christine Feldman, the Director of Marketing Communications Team, and here is my lovely team. I have two graphic artists, Lori Hicks and Karen Gardner, who work on everything from signs, which I never in my wildest imagination knew how many signs were in a library. Karen really spent a lot of her time on that. And Lori, who does our Beautiful Happenings newsletter. And then I have two generalists, Sarah and Kelly. Kelly is actually sort of a shared position with virtual services. She helps with social media. Next one. Two of the marketing strategies that keep us the busiest are library happenings. Brand new edition just came from the printer today, so I encourage you to take a look. It's a quarterly publication, and every issue we have a list of our trustees, always usually in the second page of the edition, so I encourage you to take a look at that. It lists as many of the programs that we're having in a quarter as we can. We have over 1,000 programs a quarter, so obviously I can't list them all in a 24-page document. So it's a bargaining system, and we try to make sure that we're listing the most important ones. We print between 20 and 40,000 copies, depending on the time of year. We do mail a small number of copies to elected officials, key constituents, some schools, things of that nature, but it's available online, and you should get an email next week reminding you that it's available online. And thanks to our foundation, we have a very user-friendly online version. Another thing that keeps us extremely busy is our email marketing. Before I started in 2014, we only emailed for polls and overdue fines, I believe. But thanks to Skip and his forward thinking, we got a system that allows us to market to people based on how they've used the library. So we try to take real advantage of that. And we try to be targeted in how we reach people so that we get them to open our emails in the future. So that's my walking a fine line between all of the requests I get. But so far, we've already sent out nearly 300 messages this year. Additionally, we do everything from bookmarks and calendars, provide graphic support for the website and social media.
what's your email marketing vendor?
It's called Orange Boy, and it's specific to libraries. So they allow us, based on how a customer uses the library, to segment them into what are called clusters. So it's really effective in saying that if you check out the children's book, I know that that's what you're going to be interested in, so I can target you. This is what keeps me awake at night, are active card holders, people who are using the library. At the very left is the worst of the worst. It is the lowest point we've been during the pandemic, obviously, roughly 75,000 active card holders. We are making progress, and we are over 100,000 at this point. So I'm happy and want to continue to make that grow even higher. Another part of what I do primarily is media relations. I'm typically the primary spokesperson unless it's a subject matter expert. So I'm responding to requests from reporters. I am trying to pitch stories to reporters. I've given a couple of examples of some of the things that we've done recently. I try to encourage papers to run op-ed pieces by Skip, so I might help him write those. And then building those relationships so that when we need the press, they'll listen to our pitch. Advertising, we have a relatively healthy advertising budget, and we try to advertise in a variety of ways so we can reach a variety of customers, both digitally and in print. These are a few of our examples. That's okay. Just one thing I didn't have a photo of because it just happened last week. We have public transit ads for the first time on city buses in Annapolis. So we're excited about that.
Check out MBA. You get free ads there.
Yes.
Done that before, yeah.
Yes, I've done that. They're a lot harder to nail that and say, I only want these buses that stay in Anne Arundel County. But yes, absolutely. Continue. Signage, like I mentioned, Karen on my team and some of the rest of us are involved with everything from designing the library card to wrapping the van to doing graphics at the mall, physical signage, murals, you name it. We do everything. Your badges, hopefully you got your badges. Karen on my team handles badges, business cards, all of that. Then we do a lot of special events. The 100th anniversary last year was a series of special events, it felt like. But we also do openings like the community pantry, groundbreakings, and help with foundation events. And then this is sort of the catch-all of some of the other things. Government relations, I write speeches for Skip, talking points, scripts for commercials. Speaking of commercials, we are working with Comcast and one of their companies to do a commercial, and we're filming at the Annapolis Library on Wednesday between 3:15 and 5:15. If anybody wants to be in the commercial, you'll just be in the background, there's speaking roles, and I need children in particular. So it'll just be filming people enjoying the library. So let me know if you're interested. I do the annual report. Let's go back a little bit. I do the annual report, which I hope to have, we call it a community impact report. Hope to have that to you by October. If I can get the county to give us the final fiscal numbers, that would be great. I deal with complaints and then design and sort of aesthetics of the buildings as well. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was Public Information Act. I am responsible for the records that people may request. It can be everything from security camera footage. People will contact us trying to get circulation records, which those are not releasable. How much we spend on items, email requests, those come through me, and I work with Jay to address them in the appropriate length of time and to follow obviously all of Maryland state law, but it is something that we take very seriously. And Rudy and I are on the governance and strategy committee, so you will see our faces if you decide to join that group. And that's it. How much?
Just under 7 minutes. Okay, so Cedric Grant is enjoying himself in Singapore the last week or so. So I'm going to cover the finance committee, and I better set the better reset this in time myself. Okay, so basically, I just want to give you a little overview of the budgeting process and so on. So next slide. So these are the items that are covered by Cedric and his team. He has staff of about 5 people. We have an accountant, Michelle Davis, who's been with us for 10 or 12 or 14 years. We have 3 other staff members that work with her, if I'm thinking of them correctly, but they handle all of the things that we do internally in the library. Now, we work closely with the county because, for example, our purchase orders, we have to get the county to do the purchase orders. When we have an annual audit, that is done by the county. So when the county releases its CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Review, every year, that happens. The library is included in that as a component part of the county's CAFR. In the past year or 2 or 3, we've had some discussion about trying to do our own audit, sort of supplemental to the county audit, because there may be things we aren't picking up that were done in a general audit by the county. So that'll be something, if you decide to get onto the Finance and Audit Committee, you would be talking with us about whether we should go ahead with that and timing on that. So there are requests for proposals. The biggest one I think we've done, well, one of the biggest ones other than the building projects, is a new integrated library system. So Rudy is working on that, but the finance department puts it out, answers questions. If somebody has a question, then we respond to it. We always do it in writing. Then we put the answers up for everybody to see on our website. There's an annual 990. If you're not, you may or may not be familiar with 990 reports. Our foundation does one, and our library does one as well. Budget development and tracking. So Cedric works actually closely with the executive leadership team, but also with the Finance and Audit Committee on development of our budget, which essentially we try to get it started around October, and then we have to pass, the board has to decide on the budget they want to submit to the county. The biggest thing is to develop the supplemental requests that we want. Because in working with the county, we work with a baseline budget, and they take the existing number of employees and they decide what we are offered, in the last 10 or 12 years, ever since the recession of 2010, even during the financial crisis, we have been allowed to get whatever the non-representative employees get. So this year, I think it's 4.5% merit increase on your anniversary day. And actually, that's probably, I'm getting it mixed up. And then it's a 3% COLA. It's one of the other of those. It's a pretty big increase, and we've had roughly 40% increase in the last decade in employee salary. So we were able to keep up pretty well, probably better than the union contracts in some way. So that's been very good. The next slide, please. So this is our approved budget. You now are in charge of a $31 million budget, and that's just on the operating side. Next slide. Same thing, we balance it. So so there's the increases for this year. Rudy mentioned the cybersecurity specialist position. That was a last minute thing that the county was able to put in. So it was just great that we were able to get that. We've been pleading with them, and the council actually came back because it wasn't in the county executive's initial budget. But then we got the other 2 positions, plus the 6 positions for our kindergarten readiness. Those we had asked for, Kathy, what was it, 26 positions? I think?
It's 27.
27 positions and something like 8 vehicles. Rudy and his group had put together the purchase order proposal for the 2 electric vehicles, and that was a part of what we put together in our submission. So anyway, you see the other things. Next slide, please. This shows our budget. If you came here 5 years ago, the budget was $5 million less. And the biggest increases have happened through when Stuart Pittman became county executive. He knew that we actually met with him before he was elected at the old Discoveries Library. So adding the new
Been
Discoveries.
elected, you had already been elected.
Well, anyway,
Already been
okay.
elected.
Well, let's talk that over a beer later. At any rate, we got 10 new positions. We pay $280,000 a year for the rent, and we have a 10-year lease at Discoveries. And that's a big part of what the increase was. As I said, we've had these pay increases over the next 10 years, and so that's how we got to the $31 million budget. Next slide, please. Again, you will see this. You'll be able to dig into these reports every month. Next slide. Is that it? Okay. So Kathleen Sparrow is coming to us online, and Kathleen will be next. And I took 6 minutes. Okay. Kathleen, you're up.
All right. So the foundation is basically the development department for the library. We are all part of the library, and our ultimate goal is to make the library better through philanthropy. Next slide shows our team. Each of us have different responsibilities, but the 3 of us are fundraisers. I focus on development strategy and operations. Gina Grove is our events and marketing communication liaison to the marketing communications department. And then Julie Kaiser-Ball is our development manager. She focuses on the library grant program. Next. Our purpose is to raise funds to secure resources for the library. And it's been said that, we fill in the gaps. So primarily programs, services, we help with collaborative spaces, ensure school readiness. We don't fund the bodies. They like to say the 3 B's: bodies, books, or buildings. Next slide. The foundation board is an independent 501c3. Just 2 things I want to point out is in fiscal year 22, they allocated $475,000 back to the library. And fiscal year 23, we've approved $800,000 in grant allocations. So the foundation's been growing over the last couple of years in spite of the pandemic. Next slide just shows that we touch almost everything that you heard about today. We have had a hand in helping to enhance it. Our biggest project last year was the new website and the rebrand. And then the next few slides, if you'll scroll those quickly, just show the breadth of what we help fund: technology, shelving, a lot of programs, crayons, smart boards, you name it. If the library needs it, we try to raise the funding for it. We do this through a variety of ways. We work very closely with Christine, and we're very grateful for all the help she gives us, because we do our own monthly newsletter. You'll all receive that. This shows the community, the impact that donor dollars have. And we want to show the community how their donations make the library better. So you'll get copies of that. I hope you won't unsubscribe. It comes out about once a month. We've grown it over 1,000 individuals in the last year. The way that you can help as a trustee is by participating in the many events I've already talked to you about for the love of the library. Thank you to all of you who have bought tickets or sponsored. We really appreciate it. We do Read Between the Lines. We do a lot of different events because those are experiential opportunities for people to learn more about how they can make their library better. But we also do a lot of digital and direct mail campaigns. Direct mail, and this helps our annual fund. Cyber Monday, you'll learn later that we don't do Giving Tuesday, and the reason we don't do that is because we do Library Giving Day. Between Read Between the Lines and Library Giving Day, we brought in over 500 new donors who didn't know that they could give to the library. And so we're building upon that. Library Giving Day is one day of giving. It's a nationwide campaign. And as we get closer, you'll learn more about that. Our community is very generous. Keep going, next slide. You can also leave a legacy through our Planned Giving Society. Anna Greenberg's, I think many of you know Anna. She's been a philanthropist in our community, very supportive of the library. The Anna Greenberg Society is a planned gift of $50,000 or more, but we also have the Legacy of Learning Society, which is just, it's a smaller planned gift, or it's just that you're in, you've made a commitment to leaving the library in your will. And finally, the way, next slide, this is my last slide, finally, the way that you can help is I sent you your philanthropic menu of opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities in that menu format. You can choose to participate in all of them, or you could choose to participate in only one or two. We ask that you make a gift to the library to show your philanthropic leadership, and that you choose to, you look at the opportunities that you have to support. Also, I encourage you to bring your friends and families to the library to see the many programs. The many programs. Can we go back to my last slide? I'm not quite done. I know I'm going fast, but I still have one more thing to say. To showcase the great things that are going on in the library, but also we focus on, we also would appreciate it if you would participate in social media, share the many events and or activities the library offers, and then also share the email newsletters that you receive from Christine or from me, and invite your friends and family to come to the variety of events that we offer. Donor funded. I wanted to point this out because you'll see this in happenings, and you'll also see this in many of the libraries. We don't say foundation funded because the foundation is just the conduit for how we receive the gifts. People give to the foundation because they love the library. And so our job in the development department is to really promote the library, promote all the good work that is happening, and encourage our community to step forward and make a gift. So we always say donor funded, and we take a moment always to thank our donors. We have a very robust stewardship program, and to show the community the impact that their dollars have on making a difference to make your library better. I'm your liaison, and so if you ever need anything related to philanthropy, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And again, thank you very much for your support, and I look forward to seeing you at For the Love of the Library.
Thank you, Kathleen. And Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you so that you and Jan Elaine can take this next part of the agenda. Should we?
Yeah, let me just ask, thank you very much to all of you who presented. And Skip, I don't know if I heard, are you going to make the slides available to the board?
Yes, let me mention, we're going to have an opportunity in just a couple of minutes to talk about board effect and to look at board effect. But right now, all these slides are on board effect. If you go to the left-hand side where it says library, and by the way, thank you all for going into board effect. Donna is able to see that pretty much all of you have used board effect most of you more than one or two times. So that's really good to kind of get familiar. If you go to library and resources, you will see not only the slide deck that says Library 101, you see all those slides. That's where you can go in and get everything you just saw. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions that people have to address to the people who've done the presentations?
I had one question for Mr. Roundtree. When you talk about AP price, is that retirement for employees? I mean, the investment that employees have. Is that-
T-Rowe price?
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is that the T-Rail price, yes, is that retirement?
Yes, it's Swiss retirement.
And you said 104 people or 106 out of over 400 people have signed up?
Correct.
Everybody
Has
has,
an opportunity.
everybody has a retirement plan, it has a pension. This is additional money you can put away.
Yes, I know. Is it tax deferred?
Yes.
Okay. And I know I'm heavily in that because I'm in the public school system. I just hope more people will take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
I will be trying to
We tell them all morning to promote it, but yeah, it's up to them to.
Yes, I know. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let me ask Jenny Lane if she would talk with us a little bit about the work of the board.
I'm going to talk very shortly. I'm going to be better than anybody else. You have your manual. Everybody has the Board of Trustees manual. The first part gives you members of the board, all kinds of information that you need. The part about the work of the board is section 3. And when you go there, you'll see the very first page shows you what board members, what trustees are supposed to do, what their jobs are, versus what the employees do. This is what we do in that one page. So make sure you take a good look at that. In part 3, we have our bylaws, we have our open meeting rules, all things that apply to us all the time. Things like we can't vote on anything we have a financial interest in. So we sign every year an agreement that we don't have any conflicts of interest, or if we do have a conflict of interest, we list that. So it's important for you to look through section 3 and make sure that you understand our bylaws, open meeting laws, and your responsibilities. I believe, I don't know, I forget which section, there's a form for us to evaluate ourselves as trustees. You might want to take a close look at that. You know, how you tell if you're doing your job as a trustee. Some things to remember. We hope that everyone will give their opinion in our meetings. How you see an issue, how you feel about that issue. Things that the rest of us may not have noticed that you think that we have to bring our attention to. But once we make a decision, once we vote, and we will vote on many, many issues along the way. Once we vote, don't go out and criticize what our decision was. That's here within the board, and that's not for the public. Well, I mean, they can watch our meetings and see, but you just don't go around criticizing it. Respect confidentiality for our employees and for our board members. When we have a closed meeting, it's because it's going to affect an employee or be involved with something that should not be, you know, it may affect somebody personally. And we hope you're listening to your parts of the community. One of the things that we were looking for is to try to get somebody from every councilman district. We're getting closer to that every time we select new members, but we haven't hit 100% yet. So go out there and listen to people in the community and bring that back to the board. You know, I'm hearing this complaint, I'm hearing this compliment, whatever you hear out in the community. If there are complaints, if you have complaints or the community has complaints, make sure you inform Skip. You know, bring it not only to the board, but to Skip, so he knows what's going on. and be a champion for the library staff. We have the most amazing people working in our libraries, dedicated and long hours and much work. So be champions for them. Again, I think I informed everybody on the interviews. You've been appointed for three-year terms. We don't have you prisoner. You don't have to stay for 9 years. But you can stay for 9 years. We'd hope that you would stay for 9 years. But after 3 terms, we're out. I've got 1 more term to go. And then I'm out. We have 7 appointees from the county and 1 at large from the county. The other 9 members are brought in by the board itself. And although we try to keep a balance around the county, it's still our choice. And we rewrote the bylaws about 2 years ago, Steve?
5 or 6.
And that one?
Well, we've rewritten them again a couple of times.
Yeah.
But the big change was in 2016.
So we felt that new blood was important. And let's see, anything else? Oh, well, you do want to know this. If you don't attend 3 meetings, you could be removed from the board. Obviously, we have virtual attendance when it's difficult for whatever reason, you're out of town or somewhere else, but we have virtual meetings. But if you miss 3, then, we can talk to you about potentially leaving the board because you're not committed. We have 10 meetings a year.
We have,
10, generally.
yeah.
Generally, we have 10 meetings a year. We alternate between the 3 committees and the full board. So on 1 month, you'll be on your committee, either finance, human resources, or governance. Right? And then the next month, it'll be the full board. We're trying to make the board more efficient so that we don't stay here until 5 hours. And I think that's all I have to say. You're up, Chris.
Yeah, let me just add that the bylaws are particularly helpful in defining the work of the 3 committees. That is, everyone on the board is expected to serve on 1 committee, and I'll be asking you to send me your choice of committee, and I'll try to meet your request if at all possible. But you can look at the bylaws to see what's involved in the work of the committees. It's also helpful to know that there are 2 staff members that staff and serve each of the committees. And that's also in your board manual, so that the Finance and Audit Committee will have Cedric Grant and Kathleen Sparrow covering the meeting, helping you with the service that's required. And for Human Resources and Diversity, that's Coven and Kathy. For Governance, Strategy, and Organization, Rudy and Christine. So give some thought to which of the committees you'd most like to serve on. And I think the best way to do this was probably to send your request to Donna. Donna, is that agreeable with you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Send them to Donna. You can send them to me as well, and you can write to me about any questions you might have on the service of those committees. I'd be happy to respond. I also thought it would be helpful to say something else about that Section 3 tab. It helps to explain the Open Meetings Act. There may be times when we would close the meeting on the general public. And these are very specific times specified by statute, by Maryland law. And they might be to discuss the appointment, employment, promotion, discipline, demotion of any employee, to protect the privacy and reputation of individuals, to consider investment of public funds, marketing of public securities, conducting collective bargaining negotiations, and to discuss some matters of public security. And it'll be my job and Skip's to remember when such an occasion would come up. But in each case, we would ask the board in public session to vote to move us into closed session. And we'd have a reason for it. And we'll fill out the forms and let the public know eventually through the minutes what it was that we discussed. I don't mean all the substance and all the comments, but in general, what went on in the closed meetings in the interest of transparency to the public. That self-evaluation form that Jannie Lane mentioned, it's a one-pager, and it's a way of reminding ourselves of the kinds of things that we should expect of ourselves in serving the library. These forms don't go to anybody. They're not turned in. They're not commitments that you're pledging to do certain kinds of things, but they're reminders. They serve as reminders to us. So it's useful to go and take a look at those at least once a year. And Jannie Lane has reminded us of doing that. So the manual that was passed out at the last meeting has all sorts of useful information. And I have to say, I spent a couple of hours before this meeting going through it again and learning new things. And so I encourage all of you to do the same. It might be good then to turn to Donna Denny and see whether there are questions that she can answer about board effect.
So let me
Other
answer.
questions that people have on the board.
Would anyone like to get board effect up on the screen so that if you have questions about it, or are you feeling good about it? You're nodding that you're feeling good about it.
I'm in there right now.
That's great. That is great.
I have to say that everyone, I can tell if you've been in there, you've all been in there, so we are very, very grateful that you're taking to it.
The one question I had was, because you had mentioned the email exchange earlier, is board effect a potential sort of repository for any communications? That might,
Yes.
yeah, so we're not searching for email. If we have emails back and forth, can we post those on board effects so we all know they're available?
We have not ever put the email exchanges we have that go through the Board of Trustees email board. That has never been placed on there. If there was something that was important that you wanted to put there, we could, but those emails are happening in a separate place.
Yeah, I just didn't know if that might be helpful for people as, since it's materials related to this meeting.
Well, the materials that are sent out, Donna sends out the materials and sends you a message and a link to the meeting. And she says, and like, for example, I send out those policies as attachments. Well, those are in board effect.
Right.
But the email itself doesn't get there. If there are no other questions about board effect, Chris, you may want to talk about the Adopt a Library program that Jan Elaine has been doing, and she did.
Yeah.
Happy to let someone else take that over.
Yeah, Jannie Lane, is this something you want to continue to do? You've had so much to do.
Nope, I was taking about 2 steps back because we've got new blood.
Okay, so that's another thing that I'd like to ask for a volunteer, someone who might coordinate this effort. Adopt a Library is a program that I guess Jannie Lane herself a few years ago brought to the board, and the board adopted as a program that each member of the Board of Trustees would adopt a library within the system and headquarters. So there's 17 board members, there's 16 libraries plus a headquarters, there's one for each of us. And the idea would be to visit that library, get to know them a bit, bring some treats on Valentine's Day or some other time during the year, and come to know the members of the staff on the ground so that we can have a good appreciation of what goes on. perhaps attend at least one of the programs each year in that library. Some way of making a connection with the library. The foundation board, working with Kathleen, has done this, and every year they rotate the library, or every other year, the library that each member of the foundation board would attend. And it perhaps whoever would volunteer to coordinate this would consider talking to someone on the foundation board who's doing this, or working with Kathleen, because it might even be better and make people more comfortable if there are two of you who were attending that meeting. You went with a foundation board member. They'd have someone at the local branch who could talk to trustees about our work, or talk to the foundation board member about the additional things that the foundation makes possible at each of the local libraries. So I won't ask for a volunteer now unless there's somebody dying to do this, but I would ask you to please let Donna, Danny, or me know if you'd like to do this before I call on someone and ask whether you might please help us here. Well, I think maybe it's time to turn, yeah, exactly. Time to turn to these policies. And let me remind you of a provision in the bylaws. We're looking at policies. What was presented with the agenda and is being presented now is not being presented by a committee of the board. And under the bylaws, it means that any motion to approve these that is made in this meeting would be considered at the next meeting in September automatically, unless there's a motion to do away with that requirement, and that would have to be passed by 2/3 of the board. In other words, if we wanted to act on a motion to approve these policies today, we'd need 2/3 of the board present. Those 2/3 of you who are here and present at the meeting, to say yes, let's abandon that provision. Otherwise, we will consider it in September. Those of you who may be worried that we're acting too quickly on this. So can I turn to Jay Creech and help us walk through what is in these proposals, and then we'll take discussion?
Certainly, Chris. So when I came on board, I took a look at some of the requirements for appeals to the vote. And there are two basic matters that people appeal from: employees appeal, and there are grievances and disciplinary actions. Fortunately, very few, as I understand, historically have come through. But when I examined what was going on, I was kind of surprised that there wasn't any written provisions about how these appeals would be handled. And the reason is because in my dealings with the county and with the state, there was always a set procedure on how to handle this. Including in the county, it has a 4-member board. And if you go to the County Board of Appeals, which is actually provided by the state, it's a 7-member board. So I took a look at this, and I was also surprised that the Board of Trustees, I was surprised to find out the Board of Trustees heard a grievance last year where all 17 of you listened into the grievance and conducted the evidentiary hearing. And I was quite shocked because, first of all, like I said, both by state and county procedures, it's a much smaller group. And the other idea that I had was that it was kind of unwieldy having a trial with basically 17 judges, whether or not you call it a trial. Well, I call it a trial, but you have fact finding as such. And I don't know of any other group that does it like that. That's more like a search group procedure.
We didn't have, it was made available to 17 people, but only a handful of people participated.
I see. Well, that could lead to problems too. If a handful of participated under the quorum rules of the Board of Trustees, then it may not be valid. That being said, for 17 people to conduct this, there would have to be at least 9 people present as part of this hearing, whether it's a grievance or a disciplinary type appeal, to produce a valid result under the current rules. The other thing that strikes me as an attorney is there's no presentation of evidence format or anything like that. So that being said, with Skip's approval, I immediately hopped in, Skip and Chris's, of course, I immediately hopped in and did a consolidation of both the state and county appeals and produced this document entitled Evidentiary Appeals. And of course, that's been circulated and we have revised it a little bit. But substantially, it provides, and this is done on other cases within the state, that there is actually a hearing board that produces, that listens to the matter, produces a report, and turns it over to the full body to come up with a decision based upon their recommendation. Of course, they can have the full board can have a hearing or can hear from different parts from the appellant if they wanted to, or have the administration justify what's going on. But that provides a basis of going forward. So that's the reason why I have created this format. And as I indicated, I pulled this from both state and county rules. So if somebody were to go into the state rules regarding county boards of appeal and find a sentence that looks substantially like this, please don't charge me with lifting other people's stuff. I freely admit that I grabbed this from other sources. It's been evolved over my imagination. In any case, I've created a process that a 3-member panel can hear these type of appeals, can produce a report, turn it over to the board for the board's action as to what they want to do. There is no requirement that I can find that the entire board has to hear all the evidence or anything like that. So this is, in essence, what the County Board of Appeals does, is it receives the information, summarizes it in terms of the factual basis, and then produces a recommendation. Of course, anything to be done on disciplinary or grievance matters would probably be done under closed session because it deals with employees. And since we're talking about this, I believe it was stated that, another reason why this has come up is that 6 weeks ago, we got a grievance, and it was, how do we handle this in a board meeting? Oh, the next board meeting is in October, and we're supposed to handle it in expedited fashion. And really getting 17 people together, or at least 9 of them, would be very difficult for doing this. However, the 3-member panel could more quickly respond, set a hearing, and get the information so that at the next board meeting, it can be closed matter. Otherwise, evidentiary hearings can take 2, 3, 4 hours, and it would take away from the board's ability to conduct their own business. Does anybody, do you want me to go through this section by section? I'm sure that everybody's had an opportunity to read it, probably.
And I think it would be best if we just heard questions from people about it. I will add something. Did you want to say anything separate about the progressive discipline policy and the staff grievance policy?
I will. Progressive discipline policy, what we did is we revised certain sections of the progressive discipline specifically to comply with the public library law in the education article. When it was listed in the previous, it contained certain information that may not have been entirely in compliance with that law. So we've done that. And the only other things that either of these, I believe, is to provide for this policy, how the use of the 3-member board and reference back to the policy.
Right. Okay, so are there questions that people around the board have about the policy?
I've got several, but I would rather others go first.
I had a question about the mailing requirement in the policy. Could
Yes.
we consider modifying that to email or some other way? I think it's under the motion section.
I don't think that there's a problem with doing it by email. I believe that that would be consistent with notice. The reason why I placed that as a possibility of written notices in case there wasn't an email type of situation.
Let's just throw email in there. That way it's one more way and it's expressly authorized.
Yeah, and also if it goes through the US Postal Service, I don't think 3 days is adequate.
The only reason I use 3 days is because that is what is standard for the court system. And you and I both know that even if you drop a letter in the mail on the Postal Service today, that it may not get to Annapolis in 5, 7, or ever. I mean,
Right.
but this is just a presumption that you place in there because you cannot say, you can certainly enlarge it. But again, remember, we're dealing within the county, mailing a letter within the county. It's not like it's out of state.
Unless it goes to Baltimore and then comes back, which they do.
I understand.
I don't know about anybody else. This may just be me. I'd be more comfortable with a 5-day, proof of informed people.
Is it certified?
It would not be certified.
It's just a notice requirement.
Yeah, it's just notice. And the
Actual
other,
notice.
yeah, the other thing I found that if you do certified mail, and particularly if it's a situation that deals with discipline and there may be contention, a lot of people don't think that's sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is that 5 days working days?
It can be any way you define it.
And we define days as work days in that policy. So Monday through Friday excluding holidays.
But Chris, it just said Monday to Friday. With the library system, people are working on Saturday and Sunday too. That was another question I had.
Maybe I'm reading
Eric,
the
define it as
state
Monday
in the
to
law.
Also had a question.
Yeah, I know we had it before, but I understand reasons and everything you're saying, but the experience that we went through, I was on the board, and one of the things that I'm concerned about is that if 3 people hear it and they give us a report, I don't know the extent to that report, because I know I asked a question that no one else asked that revealed information that became not important, but it was revealed. So if I hear, and it's not that I don't trust the 3-panel board, but I don't know if that's enough people, because I was concerned that the question I asked had not been asked. And I felt it was very important, and it made something that I thought was unclear, clear. And just reading your document, I'm not a stupid person, but sometimes the way lawyers do things is hard to understand. And I wish it was more clear, especially when you have a section under, I was reading one of the sections, and I'm like, what is he asking? I don't know. And I know lawyers are very good at writing things that make sense to them, because you're using it from your domain and your jargon. And sometimes I wish things were more common, written in more common language, so.
We can certainly,
Yeah,
you know, if
kind
it's
of-
not unclear. we can
Well,
certainly-
I'm just, yeah, just to make it a little less. And then, you know, also I work a full day, so here I'm tired when I'm at a meeting, so I don't process. And I'm going through a lot of grief in my life right now, so my processing is slower. I'm just being really honest. So when I read things, I have to read things, I'm also dyslexic, so I have to read things 2 and 3 times. And I'm reading some of your paragraphs, I'm like, I know this makes sense, but what is he asking, or what is he saying, or what is expected? So to make sure that when we deal with legal issues, even though we want it to be in the language of the domain of legal things, to make sure that for the common person and for the employees, that is written in a form that people have an easier understanding.
Well,
Does that make sense?
this is designed as, not as a legal document, but this is designed as a policy document. So it should be easy. If there's some part of this that you don't understand, we can certainly explain it. But I assure you that I did not try to, I tried to simplify
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
I did not want to put in extra sentences to
Yes, I
make it
know.
legalese.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's something I read, and maybe I'm just tired right now, but it was the evidence or some sort of, I'm like, what's this mean? So just to kind of look it over again and make sure because some of it, I'm having a hard time to understand, and maybe just because I'm tired, but I just want to make sure the policies are very, very clear and very, very basic. Because I think anytime an employee has a grievance, it's, I don't know. In my private life, in my professional life, I'm a union person. So I'm always seeing things from the employee point of view. But I think it's good to see things from the administrative point of view as well. I think both views are very important, but we want to make sure things are very clear. And for those of us who are trustees, to make sure we understand. So I don't know, I still have a lot of mixed feelings about that because I do think that if someone has come to the board and we did get the email and I was like, okay, I didn't say anything about it. It's very hard to make sure that we understand the situation from both points of view. And if I don't hear it myself, then I'm not as confident that I can make a decision. So especially if I have to make a decision that that impacts someone's employment, pay, retirement, that's a big decision. So I would like to have more information personally if I have to be involved in it in any way than less. Not saying that I don't trust my fellow board members. It's just, it's a lot. Maybe a panel of 3 is too small. I don't know. I'm still struggling with that whole idea.
Yeah.
What about some plain language review of the policy? Because I think it's important to have something that's clear. We can talk about the membership makeup, but we could maybe do a little plain language updating of this to make it easier for everybody to understand.
Jeremy, I know you have a question. Chris, I just want to point out that we're about 4 minutes away from 5:30. It is sounding to me like the board is not going to want to take this up on a vote today, and I think that's perfectly fine. It's sounding to me like there's a lot of things that need to be reviewed and come back to the September 15th meeting with the intention to vote at that time. And I don't know if motions should be made today on such things as the mail being changed from 3 to 5 days. Maybe we should set aside any motions being made today, and everybody who wants to make a motion can plan for that. Lonnie, you just said that perhaps you can do a plain language review. That would be great. And Jeremy, anyway, I just wanted to get that because we're really this close to 5:30, but Jeremy, you have a question.
No,
And
I
so
was
does
just,
Rob.
I was just going to mention that we can put together our process for reporting out from the panel, right? And then review it together, make sure everyone's comfortable with the process, the format. Maybe we have a template, right, to make sure that we're reporting in a way that everyone will feel comfortable that they have everything they need, right, to review. I also really appreciated the clause in there that said that the board can request additional information, right? If there are questions more asked by.
Can I just make a suggestion? With board effect, we can all go in and leave comments in the document itself. It might be a good idea for, as you're reading through the document, if you have questions on a specific section, if we can all kind of do that prior to the next board meeting, then maybe, you'll have sort of more questions together that we can then discuss as a group, as opposed to sort of everyone bringing questions in and then, trying to figure out what section of the policy we're speaking to. So within board effect, within the policy, folks can just, sort of highlight the section you have a question on and leave your question on there.
And Rudy, help me understand this, with the document, a Word document in Word effect, can we set it up for everybody to make changes and that are seen by everyone? Is that what you're suggesting?
No.
It's already in there. It's part of the conversation that you have when you're in the book.
So, okay, so it'll have, okay.
I wouldn't you be like an appeals board? They go through the process through management first, the agreements.
Yes.
You may, I don't know how many steps they have, but most unions have first step, second step, and third step. And
There is a step process, yes.
so there is a step process. How many steps do you have?
I think it's 5 and this is it.
We're the fifth.
We're the end of the road.
Well, yeah, we're the appeal.
Yeah, that's it.
I think there was some problem with the last one that we heard. But you need to, management must keep good notes about the meeting and how they notified the employee what he's doing and how to be disciplined, for example. It'd be a multiple issue. So, for tardiness, lateness, or whatever. So
But building on what you said, this is an appellate issue. They're the ones that have to produce the evidence, right?
Right.
So what you do is you consider the evidence has been created and did the administration do the right thing or wrong?
We listened to the whole story.
Right.
But I think we're saying it's not our job to tell the administrative staff that they can do it. We just make a decision based on.
Based on what's been.
Yeah, I definitely hear you what you're saying, but again, it seems to me that the administration has to do their job in order to present the case.
Right.
So all you're doing is determining which party sustained.
Steve, I do have a question, since it looks like this is going to at least take until September, since we do have to address this current appeal in time limit, how do we propose this?
So that person has been informed by Chris that the full board will, right now, what the appellant has been notified by your chair that this will be heard on October 20th. So the person has also been notified that there is this process that we're looking at to see if we can find a way to hear it more expeditiously. And that's what the three-panel, the three-person panel, or five-person, whatever it ends up being. And I think that assuming that this board can make decisions on adopting or approving these three policies on September 15th, then Chris will be in a position to appoint that three-person, whatever number panel, immediately following that meeting. That hearing can then be held between September 15th and.
Yeah, I have to confess that it's been difficult online to hear a lot of the comments, but what I think I'm hearing is that there are concerns about timing and notice, There are concerns about clarity of the language and just concerns that we need a little time to reflect on the changes in the policy. If we're going to act at all on this in September, there are only 3 ways of doing that under the bylaws. One is that somebody makes a motion today to adopt these, and we don't go any further and then discuss them in September. But then the motion is on the documents as they're worded at this point. Second option is that we go back and work on these, and then the executive committee brings a recommendation, because that can happen without having to move an approval to another meeting. The executive committee could make a recommendation with some changes or as it is, and then the board could discuss it and pass a resolution. And the third is that we come in as we have today, and somebody makes a motion that we disband the rule of waiting another month, and then 2/3 of the board has to agree to that before we can pass on the motion. So I'm thinking with the number of comments that I heard, and I'm hoping that then Skip and Donna and Jay can clarify for me what I couldn't hear, that it might be wise for us to hold a meeting of the executive committee after we get comments from all of you. If you can make comments, for example, and submit them to me or to Skip in the next 2 weeks, then we could schedule a meeting and discuss any changes we might want to make in a proposal on the executive committee. Bring that to the board at September 15th. But, that requires that we work quickly, and it does require that members of the executive committee are willing to step forward and spend the time on this outside the normal work of the board. I'm inclined to think that that's the safest course, that latter.
And most efficient, I think.
I don't think any of us are prepared to vote on anything today.
Sorry, I couldn't hear those 2 comments.
I think we can all agree. I don't think you're prepared to vote on anything today. I'm also a little bit concerned about the optics of changing an appeal process after an appeal is filed. To what degree that might be seen as disadvantageous to the person who filed the grievance. They may come into the process believing they're going to be heard by the full board, and now perhaps won't. Although I understand the motivation is to expedite and give them the.
Well, yeah, but my understanding is also that there may be a couple of procedural changes in what the board has done before, but not a substantive change, except, frankly, in favor of the grievant, the employee, because we've actually narrowed the grounds for discipline to conform with statute. The policy arguably not a compliance.
There's the discipline policy and then there's the appeal process. I think those are 2 different things that kind of have to be looked at separately.
So in many instances,
there is not an appeals process that is policy right now. There's just not a policy. And so when the grievance came forward last winter, the process had to be created from scratch. And so the board chair at the time worked with the council at the time to create a process. And the members of the board who were here at the time saw how that worked. And Chris and Jay wanted to create a process that is in policy so that then we'll have it in place.
right,
So,
and I can speak to that, Skip, because I was involved in those discussions. In many instances, we were really grasping for anything. There were just huge vacant sections in the policy document for how to proceed because we'd never done it before. So it isn't as if this is replacing something that's already in place and has kind of been tried and tested. We're actually filling in significant holes. And I don't know, most of what I read wasn't changing what we were doing in substance. It was really just kind of informing with more detail what the sequence of consideration was going to be and who was going to be engaged in it. So I do agree. My concern about the optics is that how are the rank and file going to respond after many of them viewed one of their own, one of, I'm going to be careful with my language here, but one of them being somewhat successful and coming before the board and getting consideration. And now we're going to make substantial changes and add entire documents. And Skip, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you about this today, but at some point I'm interested in how you plan to socialize this with the folks on the floor in the libraries, and what kind of messaging you're thinking about using to ensure that this reflects a cleaner and, in my opinion, a fairer access to an honest and unbiased decision.
Rob, I'll be glad to be on the spot about this. Over the last few days, one late afternoon, I sent it to the library leadership team. I sent all 3 of the policies, the 2 policy changes and the new policy to the leadership team. The next day, I had a meeting, Kathy and Tobin and I had a meeting with the chair of the staff association and the person who's going to be expected to be elected chair and the person who's expected to be elected secretary. So the 3 leadership people on staff association to talk through it. And I had sent them the policy before that meeting, all 3 of the policies. And then right after, I sent it to the entire Staff Association Board of Representatives, which is 18 people. So that's gotten the process started. Now that this has come to the board, we will be posting it and I'll be sharing it with the entire staff.
So the
That's good news.
filing the brief will then understand that there's documentation in place or there's some change, or
Yes.
whatever we want to call it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Then at that point, we'll create a new appeals process that is very clear, and the staff grievance policy and the progressive discipline policy will be clear and out there. I would like to say that one of the biggest changes that I talked with that staff association board, Copen and Kathy and I met with them 6 or 8 months ago to say that there is one piece of it which says that the staff association has a separate grievance procedure that is accessible to the staff. From my understanding, it was used once. It was redundant and really not productive to the employee. And so Chris and Jay, in working through this, determined, and I agreed with just eliminating that. They don't need a separate process because, and so we talked quite a bit through that with the leadership. And then we are also going to meet with that board of representatives of the staff association.
That was another question.
I am aware. I'm aware of the time, and many of you have things that you need to do. It's obvious that we need to give some further thought to this before we act on it. Let me suggest that I'll call a meeting of the executive committee by Zoom sometime 2 weeks from now or so, and give us plenty of time to get a decision of the executive committee or recommendation of the executive committee to bring to the board at the September meeting. And then we can have a more complete discussion. In the meantime, if you have thoughts about changes that are needed in these documents, please get them to Skip or me within the next 2 weeks so that we can consider those as an executive committee. It's now 12 minutes past our agreed time, and I imagine we'll be losing people if we continue. So I guess I should ask if there's any objection to that procedure. I'd be happy to hear it. Otherwise, to take a motion to adjourn.
Chris, I think Jay has something to say.
Right,
And
right.
also Rob had questions he didn't get to.
Okay, so, yeah, sorry, I can't see the meeting, but please go
Brooke
ahead.
had one. Brooke had a question. She had her hand up for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
My understanding is that they can also post the comments on Board Effect.
Yes.
And if they post comments in the document on Board Effect, it would probably be easier than an email to either you or Skip.
Yeah, good point.
I do have an issue with this process, the way that we've discussed it today. I was a part of that, a human resources professional, and I was, spent 8 hours with the rest of the board going over what, as Rob said, what we had to deal with and to work with at the time. And I learned in that process that there is huge value in all of the different perspectives that were brought to the table with that situation. And not one of us had the exact same perspective, and that was an important part. And for me personally, if I get a recommendation from an executive committee, that's not, I don't know, like, I feel like I need to be more involved in the decision making about how we're going to go forward rather than just approving what an executive committee decides on. And we're a board, we are not a legal entity. I mean, I know that there's a lawyer there who is putting together a policy. Policies are important, good policies, solid policies, really important. So I'm not opposed to the policy changing per se. But I think it takes way more discussion and consideration than just this 10 minutes or, however long that we've had. So that's my feeling.
I appreciate that, and I want to clarify what I was suggesting. Because of the bylaws, we can't act at a meeting in September unless a committee has brought a recommendation and makes a motion at that time. Otherwise, if it's a motion off the floor, we have to wait until the following month. So I wasn't suggesting that the committee, the executive committee, would bring forward a motion in order to have it rubber stamped by the board, but in order for us to be able to consider voting on such a motion at the September meeting. We may not be able to, but that would at least be make it possible for us to do so. We certainly don't want to close off necessary discussion among board members about the policies.
Do we need to make a motion now to consider this in September?
If someone wants to make a motion now, then it would be a motion with respect to the policies that you have in front of you. And that would be fine, but it's obvious to me that we're going to need a lot of discussion and probably amendment before then. Otherwise, we'll have to bring a motion to the board through a committee just in order to get it teed up for resolution. So I'm happy to take a motion or simply to adjourn and have this come through a committee so that it follows the rules of the bylaws.
Chris, could you state once more what exactly actions we're requesting? We're requesting comments on Board Effect or from any interested trustee. What else would you like us to do?
I think that's it.
Okay.
I think we need to hear, on Board Effect, any and all.
Chris, if I may, and I see Jerry has his hand up. In light of what Brooke just said, you had talked about 3 options, and one was to take it to the executive committee. But one of the options that is open to the board is to get these comments on Board Effect. And I'll just say, if somebody has a problem getting it on the Board Effect, it's fine to email it and we can put it on Board Effect. Donna and I could do that for anybody who has a problem with the Board Effect. One of the options is to just have this plain language review, to have all the suggestions come in and compile so everybody can see very transparently what is being suggested. And then instead of the executive committee meeting, come to the meeting on September 15th, have the full discussion at that meeting of a document that is revised based on all the comments. There can be further amendments at that meeting. And then once everybody is comfortable with that document, or most everybody is comfortable, then a motion can be made to go ahead and suspend the requirement to have it voted on at the October meeting. If you have a 2/3 vote, which is 11 members of the full board, you have a 2/3 vote, then you can vote on that document at that meeting on September 15th.
Yeah, that's correct. And if that's preferable to people, I'm happy to do that.
How will the suggestions and comments and requests be reconciled into a document that we can review?
That's the thing. The only way it could be all reconciled is if you have some executive committee looking at it.
Right, that was my thought.
Unless you have that, it doesn't, you're just going to get a lot of comments, like at tonight, that everybody's going to want to push.
I don't know how we get a coherent document.
Well, why can't, if we're
Wait,
just,
Why can't we table this until the next meeting, until we get our ducks in line?
I think we need comments though. We
Yeah,
need
The
everyone
comments,
wishes
we
that.
still can table this until the next meeting.
if we're
Instead of trying to make a decision.
Nobody's suggesting that we vote on anything today.
So Rob, go ahead.
Table it until the next meeting.
all right, thank you. If we're transparent and everyone can see all of the comments, okay, we can have a small group of people, whether it's the executive committee or whomever, board members, to try to do an honest reconciliation of those comments into a single document. And that way, when we meet in September, we can look at both the document as it's been reconciled, and if there are concerns that that doesn't adequately or appropriately represent the comments as they were made, we can make the changes. What I don't think we can do is, we're going to be there for hours and hours and hours if we try to reconcile all of the comments into a single document as a group of 17.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems to me that such a committee, the natural one would be the executive committee, which is basically chosen by the board. And again, it would produce a document for us to discuss, not simply to rubber stamp. So my suggestion is that we table the discussion, that you make changes in board effect over the next 2 weeks. And if you have trouble with that, get those comments to Skip. I'll call a meeting of the executive committee to try to pull this into a single document that reflects best the comments of the board. And then we'll bring something to the board at the September meeting. And we'll see what happens.
And I would like to point out that when you get all these comments together, some of those comments are going to be in conflict. And the executive committee will produce something that you can look at. And if you want a 5-member board instead of a 3-member board, then at that point in time, you can move to amend it.
Yeah, exactly.
Lonnie, is that going to be inconvenient for you to try to do that within 2 weeks, the plain language review?
Oh, I can do that in a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll have a plain language review.
I mean, that's not gonna change the substance, really, if you do it right.
Yeah.
Shouldn't.
And we'll have the comments from everybody who cares to comment, and the executive committee can work from there.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds like we have a path forward.
Do we need to vote, or do we need a motion for that process that we just outlined?
If you feel the need, I don't know that I think it's necessary.
Okay,
But I think it's
good.
So I think let's wait and see what we've got in front of us at the September meeting. And for now, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
I so
I second.
You can bang the gavel.
I see a number of seconds.
Aye.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Any opposed?